for attending, everyone. So my name is Peter Gorman, and last year I convened the Big Data Special Interest Group, and this year I'll again be running the group. And today, very happy to have a speaker from Los Angeles, and the topic for this year was data security and privacy. And when I saw Juan present at the University of Texas Data Science Day, Juan had a fantastic story to tell about open data and geographic data, something that's very, very relevant to a community, and has a great story to tell. So yeah, we're ready to roll.
Yeah, so we're on now. Just quickly, everyone, a little bit of logistics. This is a really interactive webinar, so you'll see a Q&A button down on the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to send questions through, and we'll get to those as we go through the presentation. There's also a couple of poll questions which will pop up during a presentation. We'd really love to get your feedback on that. But without further ado, Juan, we'd love to hear presentation today.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for having me. Super excited to be sharing some of our story from my work at the Mayor's Office. My name is Juan Vasquez, and I will soon flip over to my slide. I just want to say a few things. I am coming out of a cold, so if my voice is a little raspy, I apologize. I'll make sure to speak slowly. And if I get the sense that maybe we have some connection issues, I'll just pause and be quiet until we for sure have everybody on. So now let me switch on over to my presentation so I can share some of my work with you all. Okay, you should all be seeing building Ellies real estate portfolio, is that correct?
Beautiful.
Great. Excellent, excellent. So let me go here just to make sure I can see everybody as well. All right, so again, Juan Vasquez at Juan S. Vaz on Twitter. That same extension, Juan S. Vaz, is my LinkedIn profile. So if you want to connect or have any questions after this is all said and done, I encourage you all to follow up with me. I am a data strategist at the City of Los Angeles with the Mayor's Operations Innovation Team. I will speak a little bit to the infrastructure later on, but really I'm here to share with you all how we've approached building LA's real estate portfolio. We've really leveraged open data and a variety of tools and strategies and creative problem solving to make this happen. So I'm really eager to share it with you all. Before we dive in, I want to provide a little context for Los Angeles. So the metro area is about 4 million residents plus. The city itself is 470 plus square miles. Some of our key industries are health tech, biotech, a lot of innovation work happening in transportation, of course, entertainment. There's a lot of real estate development happening here. We're a growing and booming startup capital, so there's a lot of small and very nimble companies doing a lot of stuff, very incredible product making. Our transportation system is growing and becoming more and more advanced. We're also a really young city. And there's a lot of spaces for interesting collisions to happen. Some of the most important issues that are relevant to our city are homelessness. If we are not the #1 homeless capital of the world, which I believe we are, we're definitely in the top 3. Part of this is we have great weather. Another is that we have a lot of ample space and a lot of transportation and roads and trains lead to Los Angeles. That's not to say that all of our homeless residents or individuals struggling with homelessness are from Los Angeles. We have a lot of cases where people come from all parts of the country. Affordable housing is another issue, or shortage of affordable housing. We are a potential target for terror attacks, also natural disasters like earthquakes. But additionally, we suffer from drought, so a lack of water. But interestingly enough, our infrastructure is not built in a way that can support a lot of water, so we're also susceptible to flooding. I share all of this context because all of this is impacted by real estate and by our built environment. And especially when we talk about city-owned land, all of our city assets can be engines to address and solve a lot of these issues. So a little context there for Los Angeles. way we'll guide this discussion is as follows. I will first share my team's vision. We have 3 initiatives. I'll share the vision for our real estate initiative. I'll then talk a little bit about what things were like in September 2015, which is when my team started work. So you get a sense of where we were at before the O team, which is what we're affectionately referred to as. I'll explain our team's goals. Something that's not reflected on the slide, I'm actually going to share a handful of victories that we've accumulated. So we're talking about a lot of systems that we're implementing, a lot of new tools. Before I go into our data journey, I want you all to be aware of some of the successes we're already seeing. As you all might know from your work environments, especially in highly bureaucratic environments, accumulating small victories quickly and validating ideas and tools and projects, very important for long-term success. So I want to highlight that. Then we'll go into our data journey. Lastly, I'll share some next steps for our project, and then just general open Q&A. I think it's important that this is a conversation, and I know you all probably have different questions that will surface as the conversation goes on. So I'm excited to learn with you all, but then also excited to learn with you, and hopefully I share some important information. So a little bit about framework in the mayor's office. What you're seeing here is the mayor's office of budget and innovation. I share this, and my team resides within that. So not everybody you're seeing is my team. We're actually a very small, like 4-person, 5-person team. But I highlight this because we're one of the few cities that has married budget with all of the work that falls under the umbrella of innovation, which to me means a lot of system modernization, digitization of workflows and processes, modernizing of infrastructure. So having high-level buy-in at the leadership level and being able to easily have conversations with the people that manage our budget and our funds is really important, because as we configure systems and do data work, we have to talk about what does this system look like when my team is no longer in place? What's the sustainability of the system? And that means that you have to secure dollars in advance to ensure that that system will continue. So important note there on general city infrastructure. We're one of the few to do that. Let's talk about vision. As I mentioned, my team has 3 initiatives. The vision for our real estate initiative is really focused on real estate excellence. And the way we accomplish that is by leveraging innovation, leadership, and intellectual capital. But the focus here is real estate excellence, a little bit of an intangible. How do you measure that? How do you define it? There isn't exact KPIs or anything that you can exactly go to. It is something to aspire to. And it is something that helps us accomplish our work as we battle through some of the highly bureaucratic waters of City Hall. And so just know that that is something that we've used as a guiding light, and really also to get buy-in at all levels. A lot of our work starts with getting buy-in at the leadership level, but the success of it really depends on department level employees using our tools, using our data, and improving their performance based on our work. So this has been a really good guiding light. Before we move on to where things were at in September 15th, I believe we have a question for you all. So I want to create space for that.
Yep. So you see that on the screen now?
Yep. So what we want to ask you guys in the audience is what you believe the most important key success factor is for a data project to be successful. So you have the choices there in front of you. We have vision, goals, technology, journey, leadership, and budget. So if you would like to vote, we'll feed that back shortly.
So I'll give you all a second or two to vote away. I'm very curious about what the answers are going to be. Maybe next time we have some bets. I don't know.
Yeah. Always fun with a bet.
Yeah. Do you think we should continue, or should we give a
Yeah, continue. We've got about half the audience there, so we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so.
Excellent. transitioning. All right. So let's join me back in time. Let's go to September 2015. This is where the city of Los Angeles and the mayor's office was at before my team began doing its work. I started work April 18th, 2015. There was no orientation, there was no training, there was no navigation packet as to what City Hall infrastructure looked like. A lot of this innovation, modernization, digitization type work doesn't come with an instruction manual. So you definitely just kind of learn, you fly the ship as you build it. So when we talk about real estate, this is where the city of Los Angeles was at. I spoke about the mayor. The city has 15 different council districts with their own elected representative. Almost all real estate decisions were driven by those 15 individuals and their very specific, highly localized needs. This created a lot of inconsistencies. It also led to a really lengthy and reactive process. Usually, if a city council member wanted to accomplish something with real estate, he or she would have to create what's called a council motion, which took about 6, 9, 12 months to accomplish, which would generate perhaps a list of assets. So and when I say list of assets, I mean a CSV file that might be saved out as a PDF that would include an address that might or might not be formatted perfectly, that would not necessarily include any contextual information. And I don't know, you tell me how you'd feel after waiting for 9 months for an answer and you get a PDF when you want to know what can I do with land. So it was also a very frustrating process. This also means that there was a lack of strategic leadership. There was nobody that was saying, what does the city need to accomplish with its real estate 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now? Because of this, we saw a lot of ad hoc individual systems, about 15 or so. I mean, I say ad hoc systems, I'm really talking about Google Docs, Excel files. I think an Access database was the most advanced piece of technology or system that was being used. And this is real estate, right? It's built environment. We were managing it as lists, rows and columns, not maps, which was really one of our goals. Additionally, no unique identifier, so it made it really difficult for leadership to use the same language. People thought they would be talking about the same asset, when in reality they would be talking about two totally different things. And there were no standard hierarchies, which made it really difficult to run analysis and to answer thoughtful questions. So that's where we were at. With that in mind, I'll share now my team's goals. This is really to zero in on using interactive maps and leveraging flexible, accessible tools that real estate decision makers could access regardless of they were at, while keeping security and liability in mind. We wanted to have standards and move away from individual ad hoc systems to a citywide true asset management system, while increasing transparency and being strategic about how we use real estate. We thought that was very, very important. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to take a quick break. I don't have a slide for this, but I just want to share 2 or 3 existing victories that highlight how these goals are manifesting themselves. One of them is associated with safety. So there was an issue some time back, and the Los Angeles Fire Department needed to make a very quick decision. This is a decision that impacts lives, right? Like when the fire department gets involved, usually an emergency has happened, risk is happening. Within minutes, the folks that now are managing the system were able to find the perfect parcel of land within, I believe, about 10 feet of where the emergency was happening, for the fire department to drop the equipment they needed to drop to go address the need. I don't know if it was a fire or robbery that was happening that resulted in some emergency. But within 10 minutes, the right exact parcel of land that met the size criteria and location was found. In the past, no joke, what would have needed to happen to answer those questions is firefighters in other trucks or ambulances would have had to drive around to find the location. Drive around. So one example, another key victory that we found is associated with elections. So here in the city of Los Angeles, the city clerk is responsible for finding locations for the polling sites. So where will people go vote? Before us, to answer the question of where are we going to put our locations, where are we going to put our equipment, again, people would just drive around looking for empty lots somewhere in the vicinity of where they thought it would be ideal, try to find a vacant lot and see if it was city owned. Because of our system, within 5 minutes, we were able to give them 5 to 10 choices that very clearly showed on a map where what they should consider based on the criteria they provided us. This is really saying efficiency, time is saved, money is saved, resources are saved. We can be more efficient with our dollars because, I mean, you know, you have just having people driving around, that's their time, it's the vehicle, it's the roads, you're just wasting time. I'll share a few more victories as I highlight the technology, but again, creating quick victories and being able to tell them anecdotally as part of a larger conversation is a key learning that we acquired from this project and this exercise. You can quickly shoot one off in an elevator or when you're talking with the people that questioned your work or that are figuring out if they want to support you, but you know that they tie back to the goals of your project. So I wanted to highlight that.
We've got the results for that poll question, if you don't mind.
Excellent, let's do that.
So the top rating was leadership at 29%, vision and goals equal on 26%, technology on 15%, and journey and budget on 3% each.
Interesting. That's cool. Would you all be down to send me those numbers after? I would just be curious.
Sure. Yeah, most definitely. And the audience, don't forget to send through your questions as we go through.
Oh, you're saying we have some questions?
No, not yet, but yeah, just to the audience, don't forget to send through your questions in the Q&A button there.
All right, excellent. That's really cool. I'm glad leadership stands out because it's definitely been a key part of our success. So clearly we're all thinking alike. All right, let's talk a little bit now about our data journey. It kind of falls in three main buckets. After I share these three main pillars, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of the tools and the different aspects of the technology that we've implemented. So we strive to centralize our data and set a baseline. We really aim to institute technology infrastructure that is modern and flexible. And we guide all this with collaborative leadership. So as the mayor's office, we definitely get to drop the hammer every now and then. And if people are not playing nice, we find very gentle yet aggressive ways of making sure they do what is needed for the success, because this is the city's future we're talking about. If you just reflect back to some of the core issues that I spoke about at the beginning, homelessness, emergencies, stuff like that. This is more than just politics or bureaucracy. There's real work that needs to happen. And so these are kind of the three main pillars that we operated under, or operate, because we're still doing this work. So how did we set a baseline for the city's assets? We used APIs, which is I think one of the most useful tools in how we can clean and merge interesting contextual data. We started with the county assessor's open data set. We worked with them very closely to identify all of the different ways that city ownership was classified. And we used them to set that initial baseline. After we identified all the records that we believed were owned by the city, we then did some validation. We connected them again via API with their respective polygons, which basically reflect on land what that record or asset looks like. So we used that as our baseline, and then we dropped over that about 55 different data sets from across the city department. These could be 2 or 3 column Excel workbooks, 1 sheet, 3 columns, address, some notes in definitely no standard, maybe some monetary value or some random piece of information. We had some that were as few as 6 assets, perhaps. We had others that were as big as 4,000 assets. And when we were done with this initial merging and setting up baselines, we started, when we were done with the initial merging of data before we went through our deduping efforts, we landed at 27,000 records. So it definitely not a super massive data set, but when you consider that we're speaking about a real estate portfolio, you're speaking about potentially 27,000 different pieces of property. How do you imagine that, right? Like, how do you visualize that? These are all some of the things that we have to think through. So core thing here, APIs as a key way to bring data together. If you'll go to data.lacounty.gov, you will see, as I'm showing on the screenshot, this is totally public. All you need is internet connection, a variety of ways to play with this data. The city encourages people to play with it. So that was the first thing, set a baseline, connect all the data sets. Interesting fact, in this exercise, we also learned that there were more than 50 ways that city ownership appeared. Now, this means that there were, for example, City of Los Angeles City, L space A space city, LA space city. We found records where the word Angeles was misspelled. All kinds. So even though we were very confident that we have all the information, there is really no 100% true way, because if maybe somebody just totally messed up on the name, or maybe new information. So just to say, there's some wiggle room that we have to play with. So it speaks to baseline, APIs, data.lacounty.gov. Go check it out. I'll be happy to share back with your organizers these links if it'll be helpful. I'm not a data scientist by trade. I did not study computer science or data science. I've learned on the job. I'm an advertiser and communicator by trade. So storytelling is the main pillar of my career, meaning I had to seek out, I don't know, I understand I can project manage API work. I don't know how to write APIs and write those scripts. So we seeked out an excellent local firm here in Los Angeles. They're a software shop and data shop, Compiler LA. I encourage you to check them out. It's 3 people, highly dynamic. They're involved in civic technology in all aspects. So as bureaucracies and governments, I think we have to be better at acknowledging that we don't know everything, and we don't have every resource or skill set to accomplish everything. So let's go find the people that are smarter than us to help us accomplish big things. And we very successfully did that. Just big on Twitter, just a few additional resources that we used. Nothing big here, just part of the storytelling component. So as I mentioned, one of the key pieces of technology we used to set our baseline was the County Assessor's Open Data Portal, which runs on Socrata. It's a really fun technology. I encourage you all to check it out. Another key piece of our technology infrastructure is what you're looking at here. It's called eProperty Plus. It's a tool that came about 3 years ago. A number of municipalities, mostly cities, townships, and counties, are using it across the state. They're using it mostly for land banking, which is a practice of selling real estate or city-owned real estate for economic development or municipal purposes. We're one of the few that has used it to improve its operational, its operations really. We're one of the few that is saying, okay, how do we use this to modernize the way we manage and approach a real estate? This has a few pieces to it, which I'll speak to in a minute. The first of which is this is the admin view that you're seeing, Backend Access. It offers a number. I really like the UI. I think it's very friendly and it's been easy for me to figure out. I'll continue on. All of the fields that you see on the left, they're representative of a really long list of questions, or a really long list of ways to query the database. We have about 60 different fields, ranging from street address, which you can drop in a keyword, to parcel size, to what you're seeing here in the dropdown. We now have hierarchies, so we understand what comprises what in which way and what leads to what. We have classifications, we have standards, but more importantly, we now have maps. This is real estate. This is built environment. Let's move away from lists. Let's look at it on a freaking map so we can get a sense of, what's the context for it. That's so important. So here you're seeing a great example of that. I mentioned polygons, which are the bright purple shapes that you're seeing. This is really important because if you are the city's building maintenance division and you are about to go tend to a building, you should be aware of what is the easiest entrance to that building, right? So if I just give you an address, you're just going to show up. How do you know where to enter? Perhaps there's a hill on one side or there's a river on the other. So knowing what's the built environment around it, very, very important. So eProperty Plus, a bunch of ways to query it and get some great information. I do come from an advertising background.
We just got the question.
You can see that? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So, yeah, now a bit about your background. How did you end up in this position with all that, being it's in advertising? Interesting.
Happy to take a break. Let's talk about that. I ended up in this position. Really, I think that I spent 3 years working in Florida for digital advertising agencies, and I was always really interested in the technical aspect of the work. How did storytelling and technology merge? And then after 3 years of working in advertising, I found myself highly dissatisfied with the work that I was doing. And so I packed up my bags, told my parents and the girlfriend that I had been with 6 months, and said, "Hey, I know we were talking about moving in together, but I'm gonna move to Los Angeles to work for a political campaign and get paid $200 a month and live in the poorest part of the city." So really, what I'm saying there is I kind of forced my career to align with my passion in a very risky way. Um, and slowly over time, I ran the digital department for the political campaign. Then I joined a technology nonprofit that taught underserved youths how to use technology to kind of bring their ideas to life. So that helped me really understand what facilitating looked like, what communicating technology in very simple terms looked like. And that led to a job leading the social media team for a software as a service company. It's called Nation Builder. They're based here in Los Angeles. And so I was the guy that was helping sell the technology in Latin America. I'm Colombian. I was born in Colombia. So Spanish is my first language. So they're like, "Hey, Juan, go sell this technology in Latin America." And that's where I had to work with the product team on localizing the technology. So I got to really see the guts of the software. How do characters come into a system? How do we tweak the interface to align with what we intend to? And then the last little bit here is that about a year before I started working at the mayor's office, I connected with an individual who was working at the city via Twitter, and then we decided to meet up for coffee one day to just he was working at the mayor's office. He was a potential customer, so for me it was a business development meeting, and we became acquaintances and friends. And then a year later, he was being recruited to be the director of this team that I'm in, and he wanted a data storyteller hybrid and thought I was that person. And so now I am giving you all in Australia a webinar on how data and storytelling help build Ellies' portfolio. So take risks, use Twitter, use social media, go have coffee.
We've got another question there, one. Do you use Google Maps or another map data source? So now we've spoken about eProperty Plus. So would you like to just explain the mapping, what the mapping, interactive mapping tool is behind the scenes there?
So eProperty Plus pulls from Google's API. It uses Google Maps, which I think is cool because most of our users at the city level are not very advanced. So the way they're used to seeing real estate is through Google Maps, or at least the land around them, where they're going to go. So that was very useful. We, in a little bit, I'll highlight how we use Esri ArcGIS. I'm personally really curious about how we can get the city to open street maps and Mapbox and more open source elements. But that's a really weird debate because to really leverage open source, you need more technical folks that are interested and intrigued in supporting the environment. So the city likes that. So that's a balance there. But that's really the mapping infrastructure that we're using.
Great. All right, thank you.
That's actually a great segue into shapefiles. If y'all go to geohub.lacity.org, you will find a wealth of data sets that speak to the city of Los Angeles's geospatial information, from parks to where the schools are. All types of analysis are readily available. You can play with them and download them via APIs, CSV files. Um, there's a Google file format. It's like K something that escapes my mind. Almost every shape, every file format you need will be there. This is important because one thing we did, which has been really, really successful in getting people excited about the work that we're doing, is that I identified that eProperty Plus only holds 25 additional shapefiles. So I sat down one day in front of my computer with a large cup of coffee and went through every data set in the city's GeoHub and identified the 50 that I think made most sense for the system we were implementing. So on the left side of your screen, you're seeing all of the mental health centers in the county of Los Angeles. As I mentioned before, homelessness is one of the is really the city's top priority right now because it impacts all aspects of lifestyle and the economy. Mental health is a huge, huge part of homelessness. So if a council member or the mayor is having a conversation about where to place transitional housing units or permanent housing or homelessness relief efforts, I think they should be aware of where existing homelessness shelters and services are, right? That's context. These are additional data points that help you make the best, well-informed decision. We also added things like bike share kiosks, all of the bus lanes, all of the metro stations, job training centers. So I thought about, what are some key areas: transportation, economic development, civic engagement, and I exported those out from the GeoHub as shape files and imported them into eProperty Plus as what in my trainings with city staff, I refer to them as community layers. So it helps the users make really well-informed decisions. That kind of covers shape files. We have a few more slides. I know this is conversation oriented. Gentlemen, feel free to stop me again if there are additional questions or any thoughts. What I'm showing you on this slide is a portion of the numerous layers that make up Los Angeles city government. On the next slide, all of the blue circles represent a portion of all of the entities which we have trained on using the system. And when I say trained, I mean me and my team go schedule a 1 hour to an hour and a half meeting with the real estate relevant group of people at the different council districts, within the library system, the Department of Cultural Affairs, Parks and Recreation, and I teach them how to use the system. After I teach them how to use the system, I send them a small library tutorial of video tutorials that are broken up into 3 to 4 minute segments that highlight that same functionality. And this was something I created from my days at Nation Builder selling software. We learned users, most users face similar learning curves. So instead of explaining to 50 users how to search for X, I can quickly create a screencast video using Jing, which is a screen capture software, to show the clicks while I narrate along. So I did a general features tour, how to search and filter, how to use the maps. And it's really just me clicking on the screen and narrating along. But I'm one person. I cannot support 100 users. That's just I have a lot of other work to do. That's just not possible. And it's also just a nice way to build rapport. They hear my voice once, then they hear it again. It builds trust. And we have a navigation guide, and we also have a Google form, which we use as a record update form, so they can made updates to records. Not everybody has admin level licenses, so they can't actively edit data. So we're figuring out the workflows so that we admins can update the records now that we have a central database. And we will be having our first user meeting in about 2 weeks. So our user group meeting. So now that we have hit kind of a critical mass as far as user acquisition goes at the city level, we want to gather them up, share best practices, express frustrations. Like with any technology, I'm sure there is a bunch of frustrations with using any tool, but it'll be a good way to build community. I think with any piece of technology, this conversation, the Australian Computer Society, this is all great examples of how community has a role in the success of technology-driven products. Um, a great aspect of eProperty Plus is that it has a public-facing component, which is what you're looking at right now. This is not live. The URL you're seeing at the top is not live yet. It is the eventual home of this system. So you're getting a look at something that even Angelinos haven't seen, which is kind of cool. And it allows us. This is the homepage for this portal. In the bottom, there's three circles you see. These are specific properties I've selected to feature. These are featured properties, which are meant to highlight diversity in the portfolio. So on the left, you see a community center, which the city owns. In the middle, that's a piece of vacant land that is, I kid you not, beachside in Malibu. This lot in itself is easily worth $3, $4, $5 million, and it is just ridden by weeds. And I don't know that in the very at the very end, past those trees, what you're seeing there is the Malibu Mountains, which border the ocean. So if anybody's looking for a piece of land for a vacation home, let me know. I work on commission. I'm just kidding. That's a conflict of interest. I can't do that. And then the last bubble, it's a park. So the city owns all kinds of things, and we thought it was important to show the breadth of that. The image in the background is just one of the images that the city owns. And so I made sure I got some images approved by the mayor's communications department at the beginning of this project so that I had some digital assets to help me with my visual storytelling components. And then that search box you see allows people to just drop in an address or a parcel number or view all of the properties. What you're seeing here is very similar to the backend interface, but this is the public facing part. So it's a little more limited. It offers most of the same searching fields. We decide which ones to make available, and we're only showing about 1,800 of the properties. If it was up to me, I would share everything, but there's a lot of sensitivities around real estate. There are existing projects that are underway, and also the truth is, city the city doesn't have the bandwidth to take in the number of requests and phone calls and emails that will inevitably come in from the real estate community wanting to buy a lot, from local communities wanting to know why there are so many vacant lots in their neighborhood, why is this land not being leveraged. So, here I'm sharing with you all the modernization of the city's infrastructure. When you're talking about human resources, that is an entire other layer that moves way slower, dramatically slower, and it's something to definitely consider when you implement. If I give you a car that can move 100 miles faster than your old car, can you drive that car? Just because you have it, can you maximize it? Can you really use so kind of having that drip of user acquisition and growth is really important. You can do all kinds of things. We also made the same community layers that I showed you in the back end, homelessness shelters, schools, bikeways. We made all of that available on the front end, and we will be doing a roadshow tour with all of the folks that care about this. So we're talking about civic hackers who love mapping. Maptime LA is a global organization. They meet every Thursday to talk about how they can make life better using maps. They should know about this. We're going to be with community groups who care about what happens at their local level. They should be aware of this tool. Last on my list will be real estate developers because LA is largely managed. Like real estate developers have a lot of influence here, and we have to really balance how we bring access to groups. We don't want this to be a conversation that suddenly the mayor's office delivered a tool for real estate developers. We need this to be the mayor's office create a transparency and access for all So those are the political elements we have to navigate. Just got 4 more slides for you. Well, really 3. 2 more on the tools and then next steps, and then just kind of open discussion. What you're seeing here is what's called a story map. It is an awesome feature of Esri ArcGIS technology. This lives within our GeoHub. It will go live at the same time that the public facing portal goes live. So the public facing portal does not allow for storytelling. It allows for the discovery of information. It allows for you to explore. We knew that we needed a component that just told our story, that highlighted our data process to complete the picture and to validate and to build trust and really to drive engagement as well. So what this does is if you go, whenever it goes live, if you go to it, it looks a little bit like this. It allows for one pane to be kind of static. The left side of the screen is static, mostly text. It also showcases some images. We have some videos embedded. And what we do is we highlight our story, the goals, and then we give 3 use cases of how the system is being used. In this case, I'm showing you all surplus properties. Surplus properties are individual properties that the city has decided that can be sold and leveraged for economic development and municipal purposes. There's a lot of obscurity around that process, so we wanted to create transparency around it. So there we highlight that story. On the right side, what you're seeing, the white shapes, these are the shape files for the city's business improvement districts, which are basically areas, very designated areas, usually just a handful of blocks, where the businesses each contribute a small tax to improve that area, meaning cleanliness, crime prevention, beautification efforts, anything to drive more traffic there and improve the business environment. I think this is an important story to highlight because if you're thinking about which properties to leverage for economic development, and if that is perhaps a commercially zoned property, the proximity to a business improvement district or an area that is currently embracing business development and tourism development, that proximity should inform something. So there's one in particular that I want to highlight for you all. It is there are only two green dots inside of white areas, white shapes. Those 2 properties, in my opinion, and I don't know that it matters to policy leaders, but in my opinion, those 2 properties should be prioritized for economic development purposes because they're in areas where you have local buy-in from business leaders and from business owners that, hey, we want to do something great here. Well, as a city, I think that means we should do something great with it as well. So some examples of how we're using this technology. This will live in GeoHub, so you can go to geohub.lacity.org and again, find all kinds of wonderful information there. The last thing, so I think this is a good stopping point for one of our next questions before I go into the next steps portion of this discussion. If you want to shoot off that next question, we can do that now.
Sure. Okay, so Juan, you mentioned that you started with 27,000 chunks of land or land parcels, and by overlaying the layers on top of each other, you're able to deduplicate those 27,000 land parcels down to a lesser number. So we've got a poll. So we've got 27,000, so unchanged, 17,000, 13,000, and 10,000. So these are the numbers of parcels left after the deduplication effort.
Exactly. So we want to give folks a few seconds to make their guess.
Sure. So no one has responded with 27,000 yet.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I would hope nobody takes that guess because otherwise a lot of our work would have been for nothing if everything was the same. Let me know when you want me to jump back in.
Yeah. Couple more coming through.
Cool. I'm excited to see what people guess.
should be able to see that now.
Oh, so cool. All right. Should I share the number?
I think what was interesting was the story where in a process you ended up navigating down to each of those numbers, right?
Yeah.
But the final one was probably the one relating to the question. So
yeah. So we started at 27. Upon the first removal of duplicates, we based on either matching assessor parcel numbers, which is the closest thing we have to a unique identifier. This only works within the county of Los Angeles. So the city owns land in the city of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, the state of California, and other states. So this identifier only worked in certain for a majority of the portfolio, not all of it. So that got us down to 17,000, removing strictly based off APNs. And then for those records that we didn't have an APN for, what we did was we basically geocoded the address, and if the pin landed, oh, and just by the way, 17,000 is not the answer. I'm giving you all the journey. So whoever gets 17,000, I'm sorry, you got it wrong. If an address which lacked an APN landed, I think we set a buffer, like a 2-foot buffer around the APN location. If it landed there, then we merged it into the record. So that initial wave of deduplicating got us down to 17,000. Then after 17,000, we ran our remaining records through what's called a parcel change. I always struggle with, it's a sequence of words that just for some reason escape my mind. Parcel file change history. The county assessor only cares about assets that change hands and need to be reassessed because that generates the county money. And so they have this file that basically says this parcel of land in this last year got split up into five new parcels, or these 5 parcels got split up into or got merged into one, for example. That updating of information got us down to 13, and then so if you guessed 13, you got it wrong. Then what happened was that I realized I had made a mistake, and so that mistake led to me having, I think, two or three ownership names that should not be on there because they were acronyms, and so that was my rookie mistake, being new to the city and not knowing the millions of acronyms that exist. It spoke to other kind of county or federal agencies, and so when we identified that mistake, that got us down to the 10,000 records, which make up the city's portfolio. So if you guess 10,000, congrats, give yourself a pat on the back. Go play the lotto. It's a good day to make some guesses.
Thanks.
Yeah, excellent question. All right, so what's next for the success of this project? As I mentioned, we will be launching the public-facing portal for eProperty Plus to drive more transparency across the city, to showcase some of our properties, better leverage property for economic and municipal development purposes. Additionally, we will actually be moving away from eProperty Plus in about a year and a half to a true real estate asset management system. So what I showed you all was information at the parcel or structure level. So the building, the piece of land. AssetWorks will eventually tell us how much space we have available at at every room inside of that building. What key pieces of, does the water heater somewhere need to be changed? Like a true kind of management component to it at a way deeper level. So we will be either using an API feed to move this data over, or we will have to do a mass export and then map the columns to AssetWorks and reconfigure the system. But now that the data has been cleaned and centralized, that should not be a big problem. As a team, part of this, I've talked technology, but I work in government, which means policy is a part of the equation. So we will be exploring a new strategic asset management model that is not driven by the council or even really the city. It will be kind of a hybrid nonprofit model that takes away some of the political components. We will continue standardizing data, data validation plans. The data will never be 100% perfect. But now that it's clean, we'll be able to expand. We'll be able to really expand the what we collect. So I mentioned the availability of rooms. 6 months ago, we didn't even know what we owned. So if you ask me, what room can I move into? I would say, well, man, let me answer, what do we own? Because we don't even know that yet. So now we can capture more insightful data. And this is key. I spoke about the human component of this work and how the human element tends to move sometimes slower than the technology component. We're analyzing the talent of the city when it comes to real estate operations. So do we have people that can run these systems? Do we have people that understand how real estate operations work and what strategic asset management looks like? If not, how do we close those gaps? So that's what's coming next. And that concludes this portion of the discussion. So now we can just kind of have some free-flowing talk. Ooh, I'm concerned you all are frozen. Are you all there? Oh, no. Hello? Okay, do you all hear me in the chat room? Okay, I'm glad you all hear me. Do you all see Ross? Okay. No. Oh, so at least it's not my internet. Well, then, oh, I think they're back. Yeah. While we get him back, do you all have any questions for me? Oh, Ross? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
It's all
Sorry, just technical issue. Everyone's on. No, we're still going.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So that concludes it. I think it's a good time. I don't know if you do all want me to repeat the next steps. I don't know if we missed that part or if we can just transition to Q&A.
Yeah, maybe just the last couple of minutes there, just after you were talking about how we're merging all that data and whatnot.
Sure. Okay. So what are we doing next?
We're talking about the rooms.
Yeah.
So we're transitioning to a better system that lets us capture more specific information kind of at the room level, lets us track more financial information, so deeper data collection. We're exploring a new governmental entity to help us run and manage our assets, so decisions are not driven by policymakers, but instead by true real estate professionals that will liaise with the city government. We'll keep working to standardize and validate our data. And the last thing that is really important speaks to the human element of this, and it is that we're gonna keep analyzing the talent. Do we have the type of employees and skill sets? I mean, we know the answer is no. So it's like, how do we get our employees to a level where they can maximize these new tools, where they can be true asset managers? And so that's what's coming next. I see there's a question here from Boris. Should I tackle that? Cool. So Boris asks, Juan, what would you say have been the challenges you have faced understanding IT coming from an advertising background and also dealing with the political dynamics? That's an excellent question. I'm going to tear that apart into the two, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can look at each other. That'll be a little better. There we go. So I'll tear that apart, answer each one first, or answer the advertising background first. I don't know if y'all are familiar with this term, imposter syndrome. It is something that basically says, am I good enough? Like, am I good enough to tackle this opportunity? Am I good enough to face this learning curve? It is not, like I'm learning SQL, it's not the technical aspect of things. You know, there's a million YouTube videos and tutorials and in-world tech classes that have all brought forth really interesting and unique learning curves. But I think it's just like my own self-confidence, knowing that I didn't go to school for a technical degree, and now I have to sit in rooms and either pretend like I know until I figure it out, or choose the exact versions of words. So it's that. It's just you know, getting over myself, getting over my own fears, and being committed enough to my own learning that I can comfortably acknowledge that I'm not a trained data professional, but that I am now a data practitioner, and that I'm working very hard to become better and better at that. And that I honestly, like, now I have this under my belt along with a wealth of other projects. So, you know, I'm getting there. The second question is more around dealing with political dynamics. Man, that's tough. I'm not somebody, I care about the work. I care about the results. I find it very difficult to deal with sensitivities when they are unwarranted. And the political dynamics have oftentimes distracted away from the true impact of the work. Um, so the way I deal with that is by I run a lot after work, so I find ways to vent my frustrations in productive ways, and then I also let the work speak for itself. So when folks see the result, you can't really argue with technology. These are maps. You know, these are things that are tangible and you can go play with, and the system lives in the internet. So good luck taking that down. So just allowing the work to reflect the goodwill, that's been key. What? Oh my God, that second question about the changing world. So the shifting Earth is forever changing by small degrees. What is your strategy to deal with that? I guess we need to invest in an excellent geocoding service that adjusts for that, and then I guess it comes down to data refreshes. Um, but honestly, that's like I had never considered that. You're right. The Earth moves. Let me get back to you. I'll come up with a better answer.
Can I throw one at you there? And this is a little bit on the same track, and that is, how do you deal with changes in electoral boundaries, for example, where there's potentially going to be some different impacts. So how do you sort of deal with that? Has that come across? Has that been a problem you've had to solve yet?
We haven't had to solve it. We've had to be aware of it for quite some time. We had elections. We had mayoral elections not too long ago. We've also had a few council district elections in that same time. Luckily, political boundaries only change at the city level at least every 4 to 6 years. So usually when those boundaries change, what is presented to the public and what is shared around is not a shapefile. It is a beautifully designed map that lives as a PDF. That it will do nothing for my system. And so we've already had conversations. I think it's with we have to talk to the city clerk and with the city planning department, I believe, so that when the city clerk is making changes, we know that city planning will reflect those changes as shape files, or eProperty Plus, the way it manifests polygons is through a WKT format. I had never come across that until approaching eProperty Plus. So just letting people be aware that, hey, for this to be useful and reflected, your ultimate deliverable PDF, and that's cool. If you want to make a beautiful PDF that you can post on a website as a JPEG, because you can't even really be a PDF, do that. But for the city to benefit, we need shape files in some version of that.
Sure.
Great. Is there any more questions from the audience at all? Okay.
All right.
All good. Everyone seems pretty happy with that. Peter, do you want to close?
Good stuff. Well, look, thanks, Juan. I only saw you speak about 4 weeks ago now,
Yeah.
and you know, I learned a lot the second time. So I was paying attention the first time. So certainly appreciate the story, and yeah, thanks very much for presenting today to the ACS.
Perfect. And you know, on behalf of myself and the audience, we thank you for your time and really appreciate, look forward to working with you again.
Of course, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all for being dedicated listeners, and I hope this was valuable. I hope to chat with you all again soon.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care.
Brilliant.
Bye-bye.